Good afternoon. It is about 5:20 on Sunday afternoon, July 26th, and I am coming to you from Missouri this afternoon, and I am pre-recording our meeting for week number 4. As you might recall, I needed to be out of town for week number 4 of the term, and I'll be in an area that will not support live streaming audio or video. I will, however, be able to get onto the internet. It may not be as robust as I would like, and it may be a little bit choppy and take me longer to get things done, but I will be able to get onto the internet and see your work as you post it, and also get things graded and get emails. So just to let you know that. Also, as we get going this afternoon, I will remind you that next week, if you're listening to this during week number 4, then next week is going to be the last week of the term. These are 5-week terms, and so the last week of the term will be coming up here August 17th to 23rd. And what I would like to do is by that time, I will be back in Missouri, off the road, and back to normal connections. And I would like to have our meeting held on an evening that week so that everybody can come in and ask any questions that they may have about the tasks for that last week, which of course include a final exam. And your final exam will be in 2 different parts. There will be a multiple choice true and false section, and then final exam part number 2 is several short essays. So you want to make sure that you come on in to that meeting, get some information, and are not waiting until the very last minute to go ahead and do the exam, because you don't want to shortchange yourself on time. Okay, but for this week, we are going to be discussing your week 4 assignments. And as you know, we have kind of changed things up here a little bit. In week number 1, I was trying to do the audio video with everybody and found out that that created such huge recordings that I couldn't upload them to you. So I have been informed that a better way to do it is to have a chat pod when people are live, and to not be doing live streaming video and live streaming audio, because that really takes up a lot of space. So we're going to go ahead and look at your discussion question for the week and your week 4 assignment. And again, remember, keep in mind, if you have any particular issues with these, you can always email me, and I will get back to you just as soon as I possibly can. Okay, so let's look at your discussion board for week number 4. You will find, as you go out and work in the legal field, that lots of times the law is about hurry up and wait. You know, you're ready to do things, but your client's not ready to pull the trigger on filing something, or the court is backed up and it's going to take time for you to be able to get in front of them, the attorney, to argue the case that you've been working on with the attorney. And so a lot of it's about hurry up and wait. However, there are times also when everything happens at a frantic pace and people are doing things in a dead panic. So your supervising attorney comes to you in a panic. He didn't realize that he had to be in court this morning, while at the same time he has a potential new client coming in for an interview. He asks that you conduct the initial interview. What do you do to prepare for this initial interview, and what do you think occurs during the initial interview? So let me take a couple of minutes here and describe to you how we do it in the firm that I'm working for. And it's pretty much the same way that it's done in most law offices. Um, People have to make a decision as to whether or not they are going to hire your attorney to handle their case. People also need to understand that the attorney is kind of interviewing the prospective client to find out if the attorney thinks that this is a case that he or she is um, suited to take, how much time it's going to take, what kind of resources it will take from other people in the firm, how long it's going to take to settle, or if it's going to potentially go to trial. And so this is kind of a two-way interview. Usually, when somebody calls in to our firm, the receptionist or one of the paralegals will talk to them and find out a little bit of information about them and find out if they want to schedule what we call an intake meeting. And an intake is where the person either comes into the office or we call them by phone to do the initial interview. So the receptionist or one of the paralegals will ask a few questions. How did you find out about us? What's the nature of your issue? How expedient do we need to be? Is this something that is an emergency? Is it something that is you've been thinking about for a while? They'll ask them some questions, and then they will usually, if they find that it is something that our law firm can handle, they will then set a time for an appointment for someone to come in for the intake and interview, or a time over the phone. Now, sometimes the paralegals or the receptionist will come to us and say, hey, I've got somebody on the phone and this is their issue, and we'll make a determination because of our current workload, vacations, court schedules, dockets, and whatnot, that maybe this is not the right time for us to take that kind of case. And in that situation, we'll tell the person to, tell the person on the phone that this is probably not going to be something that we can handle at this point in time. Either wish them good luck or give them a name of another attorney who we feel may be able to help them. If we set them for an intake, whether it be phone or in person, if they come into the office, they're given a two-sided form to answer a bunch of questions. What's going on? Who is the opposing party? Your name, your birth date, your social security number, your address, who you work for, and then things like, have you talked to somebody else, another attorney, about this situation? Is there litigation that's ongoing right now, or is this something new that you're going to need to start? We also ask them to give some information about how they plan on paying for the legal fees that will be incurred. And so it's kind of like, think about when you go to the doctor and they make you fill out who you are, who's your insurance carrier, what are you allergic to, why are you there, who referred you, all that kind of stuff. So we have a very similar intake form. If this is going to be an intake done over the phone, then we'll have one of our office staff call and ask those questions of the person, so that then that piece of paper can be handed to one of us when we either speak to the prospective client on the phone, and or they come into the office. During that initial meeting, we, again, whether it be on phone or in person, we listen to their story. You will find that people will have a story to tell, and they're going to want you to listen to it. We will do an initial consultation. We'll tell people, usually give them up to an hour for free to listen to what the problem is, and to kind of give them our take on what's going on and what we think it might take to help them with this problem. Sometimes you have to encourage people to kind of get to the points. People don't come to an attorney's office to just see how you're doing during the day. They come because something not so nice is going on in their life, and it's something that they think they can't handle, and they definitely have a story to tell. And they want to tell you all the little details. And sometimes we don't need all of those details right off the bat, but you have to be very sensitive to how people are acting. You'll have people who will come in who will be in tears, people who are angry, people who are dumbfounded, people who were blindsided, people who've never had to deal with an attorney before. You will see just about every possible scenario play out potentially in an intake interview. So we will get the story, we'll ask some questions, we will, if we feel that it is something that we can handle, we'll tell them what we think the legal steps are at that point in time. And then we will talk to them about how much it may cost, and go over a contract with them if they want to hire us. Talk to them about some things that they can do to save money. Uh, if you're going to send us an email and you have 5 questions, send us one email with 5 questions. Don't send us 5 emails with 1 question each, because we explain to people that every time an attorney or a paralegal is touching your case, there's going to be money that is going to be charged to you. We explain the fees to them, and many times they have to go away to think about whether or not they actually want to commence some sort of litigation. The people who have been served with some sort of a summons or have an emergency situation have a tendency to pull the trigger and want to get representation ASAP. Now, the interesting thing is, for you as a paralegal, if you do the intake, you can't give legal advice. Paralegals are not licensed to practice law, and it is a gray line, and you have to be careful not to cross over into the gray area, because people want to know, after they've told anybody their story, what do you think? What do you think will happen now? What do you think my chances are? What do you think he will do if I do this? What do you think she's going to say if we do that? And that's crossing over into giving legal advice. So that's something that you as a paralegal would not be able to do in an initial interview. You could go over the firm's practices. You could, have them take a look at the contract, give them any paperwork that's normally given, talk about how we do things in the firm, talk about the different people who work there. And then at that point in time, you are going to probably have to end that interview. You should be taking really, really good notes all the time you're listening. And those notes then can go, and what we do is those notes get scanned into our computer with the intake sheet. And normally then the attorney will set it aside and wait for the person to come back and make a decision that they have gathered up the retainer money and want to keep going. In your case, if you were doing it, you could explain, like I said, certain things, but you have to stop short of giving legal advice. You can't say, well, if I were you, I would do this. You would have to refrain from that. And if there were questions that the prospective client had that you couldn't answer, you'd want to make sure you write them down. And when the attorney comes back, that you make sure you brief the attorney on what's gone on, give him those questions, and then let him get back to that client either in via email or over the phone, or setting another quick appointment to determine the next steps. Okay, so that's a little bit about your discussion question. The other thing that you have to do for the week is you have to write a paper, which is something you are very used to. This will be the 4th week in a row that you've written a paper. Whoops. let's go back and let me pull this up. Here we go. We'll talk about this and then we will be good for this meeting. Your supervising lawyer has asked you to fix the law firm's library and asked you to conduct some research for him after you're done. He wants you to separate books into primary and secondary sources of law. Before you do this, he wants to make sure you understand the difference between primary and secondary sources. So please prepare a memorandum to your supervising attorney explaining your understanding of the different sources of law. He also wants to know that you understand the difference between statutory law and case law. This should be an APA formatted paper, 12-point Times New Roman, at least 500 words. Okay, so we've got a couple things going on here. The difference between primary and secondary sources of law. I'm not going to give you all the information. I'm going to give you some tidbits here that you can go out and do some research and learn some of these things. These are very important things for you to know. Primary sources of law are going to be things like the statutes. Statutes are the written down laws. If you look up the Florida state statutes, there will be everything from how you start a business to things about condominium associations to how you go about getting a divorce, how you file for child support, what kind of crimes are considered a misdemeanor or a felony, and so on and so forth. So you can look up in the statutes. That's the written down codified laws of the land. That is a primary source of research. Another primary source would be case law that happens in your own jurisdiction. In other words, whatever court systems you are working under, the case law that takes place in those courts is going to be binding primary sources of research. Okay, case law is not about laws that have been written down by the legislature making laws. Case law is once a case has gone to court and there's been a trial and there's been an appeal, whatever that appeal says, whatever the decision is binding upon the other courts in that jurisdiction. So if you bring a case to court about item X, and a judge or a jury decides that the outcome is ABC, well, for all the other cases in that jurisdiction, whenever somebody sees a client who has a case that has to do with X, they know that they need to look at cases that that court has heard about item X, and they find that the decision was ABC. That means that the decision in your case about item X would be ABC, because courts inside of the same jurisdiction need to come down on the same to the same decision when the facts are exactly the same. The bottom line, though, is that facts are never exactly the same, but we refer to case law we look and see what happened in similar cases to the one that we're working on now, and then we draw comparisons and look for differences that we can argue in a different way. So any written laws and the case law from your jurisdiction is going to be primary sources of law. The Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state you're in is a primary source of law. Secondary sources of law would be things like legal encyclopedias, law review articles, cases that are similar to yours but from different court jurisdictions. So maybe from a different state or a different part of your state. If you look at decisions that come from your state or other parts of your state that are in a different jurisdiction, those are secondary sources of law. They're not binding upon the case that you have at hand, but they're definitely, they could be used to persuade a judge or a jury that this is what should be done. Okay, so statutory law is written down law. Case law is law that is developed from the outcome of cases in your own jurisdiction. Primary law is things like written down laws, case law from your own jurisdiction, and things like constitutions. Secondary sources are going to be legal encyclopedias, cases from outside your jurisdiction. Those will be some of the biggest ones that you'll see. And like I said, maybe law review articles or other books that have been written about the topic. Okay, so that gives you a little bit of information about how to go about writing your week 4 assignment. You'll be able to do the research, do the reading, go out on the internet and do some good research, find some great information, and put together an excellent paper. All right, again, if you have questions, you can email me during week 4, and I will get back to you just as soon as I possibly can. And then again, if you're listening to this pre-recorded chat in week number 4, next week is going to be the last week of the term. And when I get back into town, we will schedule an evening time to hold our last meeting with the hopes that a lot of people could attend and ask any questions that you may have from any of the topics that we've been discussing this term, so that you'll be able to tackle your multiple choice true and false objective exam, and then also write some great short essays for your subjective exam. Okay, so that's all I have for week number 4. Thank you very much for listening. Please do your synopsis in the classroom under where it says live chat, live session for week number 4, so I can analyze your understanding of it and give you some points, award you some points for your summary. And I hope you have a great week 4. We'll see you for week number 5. Take care.